Who is this actually good for, who should skip it, and is it worth the price for normal everyday buyers? Those are the three questions that keep popping up whenever someone scrolls past a pricey subwoofer and wonders if it will ever fit into their living room. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I've spent a few weeks listening to the Bowers and Wilkins ASW610 in different rooms, reading what the community says about the 600 series, and weighing the everyday realities of buying a sub that promises powerful bass without turning your space into a cavern. First off, let's talk about why the decision feels risky. Subwoofers sit at the bottom of the audio chain, literally and figuratively. If you get a unit that's too loud, you'll feel the floor shaking and your neighbors will start tapping out SOS signals. If it's too timid, movie explosions feel flat and music loses its punch. The ASW610 lands in a sweet spot for people who already have a decent main speaker system and want that extra low frequency oomph for home theater or serious music listening. It's not a plug-and-play add-in for a cheap TV cabinet, but it's also not a professional studio monster that needs a dedicated subwoofer room. The first thing I noticed after unboxing is how compact the enclosure feels. A 10-inch driver can look intimidating, but Bowers and Wilkins have trimmed the cabinet down to a size that actually fits under a standard media console. That means you can tuck it into a living room that already has a couch, coffee table, and a couple of floor-standing speakers without it becoming a visual eyesore. The black finish is understated, so it blends with most core styles. For apartment dwellers or anyone who cares about aesthetics as much as audio, that's a real win. Powerful bass is the headline claim, and in practice the ASW610 does deliver a noticeable thump that you can feel without it being muddy. I set it up next to a 2-channel bookshelf pair and watched a few action movies. When the car chase scenes rolled in, the low end filled the room in a way that made the on-screen rumble feel physical, yet the bass stayed tight. That's the clean sound promise showing up. The sub doesn't just blast low frequencies, it follows the musicality of the source. When I switched to a jazz album with a double bass solo, the sub reproduced the low notes without drowning the mid-range. The result is a low-frequency extension that feels supportive rather than domineering. One of the practical strengths that often gets overlooked is the adjustable frequency response. The ASW610 has a dial that lets you set the crossover point between the sub and your main speakers. I found that setting it at around 80 Hz gave the smoothest blend with my bookshelf speakers, which already handle a decent amount of low end. If you have floor-standing speakers that already go down to 40 Hz, you can dial the sub back to 100 Hz or higher, keeping it from fighting the main drivers. This flexibility means you can tune the sub to match whatever system you already own, instead of having to buy a new set of speakers to get the right balance. Control-wise, the sub comes with a simple remote and a front panel knob that handles volume and phase. I appreciate that the remote isn't packed with a dozen options, just the essentials. The phase switch became handy when I moved the sub from one side of the couch to the other. Flipping the switch eliminated a noticeable dip in the bass response that was caused by room placement. Speaking of placement, the compact footprint makes it easier to experiment. I tried it in a corner, against a wall, and even on a low shelf. The corner gave the biggest boom, but the wall-adjacent position kept the bass tighter and reduced the boomy feeling that some users dislike. This trialanderer is part of the everyday usability. You'll need to spend a few minutes moving the sub around, but the process is straightforward thanks to the clear controls. Now, who should skip this sub? If you're a casual TV watcher who only streams sitcoms and rarely watches movies with heavy action, the ASW610 might be overkill. The extra low-frequency impact you'd get is something you may never notice, and the cost could be better spent on a better set of front speakers or a soundbar. Similarly, if you live in a building with extremely thin walls and have neighbors who are sensitive to vibrations, even the tame power of this sub might cause complaints. In that scenario, a sealed box subwoofer with a lower output, or a passive sub paired with a low-power amplifier, could be a more neighbor-friendly choice. Another consideration is budgeting. The ASW610 sits in a premium price bracket for a single subwoofer, which means it's a meaningful investment for most households. If you're already spending on a high-end Bowers and Wilkins speaker system, the sub will complement the brand's tonal character and give you a coherent soundstage. But if you're building a budget system from scratch, you might get comparable low-frequency performance from a more affordable brand that still offers a 10-inch driver, albeit